Well, Bennett Kessler filed this following report. A public showdown will unfold Tuesday when the Inyo County Board of Supervisors offer their comments on the draft Renewable Energy General Plan Amendment and its solar and wind development areas. Now, the agenda lists this item at 1:30 p.m. and says that the board's input will lead to revision of the plan that will become the project description of the environmental process that follows. Now, the showdown part will come from citizens who have so far strongly disagreed with the Inyo Planning Department's draft plan. Now, the item has drawn standing room only crowds and relentless testimony against industrial scale solar development in the Owens Valley. Opposition has lined up as to how and where the planning department has recommended the location of 14 large development areas. Now, dozens of environmentally minded people who might usually stand strongly in favor of solar development see it as a destructive force in the open miles of the Owens Valley, with ruination of scenery and habitats. On the other hand, many do recognize the need to have some sort of plan that will point companies in the direction Inyo County wants development, if at all. Now, a great number of the critics say the proposed development areas will lead to industrialization of scenic views. Others have criticized the language in the plan amendment as weak and vulnerable to industry devastation at the very time that utilities need to meet state-mandated renewable energy goals. Now, the issue has galvanized citizens into organized action. Several of them have scheduled a press conference for noon on Tuesday to lay out citizen goals. A press release says residents will support a plan which, quote, eliminates current renewable energy development areas from the plan, focusing instead on efforts which protect our county's wild and cultural resources and tourist-based economy, and develop locally controlled renewable energy located within Inyo County communities which serve the energy needs of Inyo County, end quote. Now, Mary Roper, president of the Owens Valley Committee, is quoted in the press release as saying that the committee applauds Inyo County's own small solar installations near the courthouse and the jail. Roper said, quote, while we support such appropriate small scale and rooftop solar energy production, we are opposed to the industrialization of untrammeled Inyo County landscape with large solar and wind installations, end quote. Now, Roper calls on the Board of Supervisors to deeply modify the general plan amendment before moving ahead with the environmental process. Now, targeted for specific dissent is the LADWP's solar plan across from Manzanar National Historic Site. Now, the press release says that those present will, quote, call on the City of Los Angeles to immediately cease and desist plans for the South Owens Valley Solar Ranch, abide by the land management agreement they signed in 2010, which prohibits industrial development, and stop looking to Inyo County for their resource needs, concentrating instead on local sourcing, end quote. Now, Alan Baycock, Big Pine Tribe Water Coordinator, said the concerns are that the general plan amendment and DWP's solar plan will meet short-term goals while, quote, leaving long-term consequences for future generations to deal with, end quote. Again, more on this Tuesday at the Inyo board meeting, scheduled to start at 1:30 p.m. Well, Bennett Kessler also filed this story. 10 days ago, the California Transportation Commission approved just over $1.4 million for the Chalfont Streets Rehabilitation Project. Tuesday, the Mono supervisors will vote on a bid package and plans for the project. Now, this project will rehabilitate 5.5 miles of local streets and roads in Chalfont and White Mountain Estates. It will be fully funded by the State Transportation Improvement Program. The Mono supervisors will be asked to authorize the Public Works Department to issue the project for bid. Now, on another project, Mono Supervisor Fred Stump has asked the board to review a recent grant application for off-highway vehicle planning funds submitted jointly by the Inyo National Forest and the Bureau of Land Management. Now, that grant would pay for an access feasibility study for areas east of Hamel Valley. Now, according to the board agenda, this study would look at the feasibility of road construction to access 14,000 acres of public land around 20 miles of primitive OHV routes and the existing roads and opportunities within those lands. Now, the agenda says that the grant application notes that the only motorized access to BLM and Forest Service land is through private property. Supervisor Stump has heard some citizen concerns on this one. Community Development Director Scott Burns recommends authorizing the grant application comments, requesting that the BLM and Forest Service include extensive outreach to Mono County citizens, landowners, the Regional Planning Advisory Committee in conducting the OHV feasibility study report if funded. And Bennett Kessler also filed this report. Former Mono County Road Department mechanic Dick Lumen went to court nearly 2 years ago to fight for reinstatement to his job. The petition filed accused Mono County and others of, quote, prejudicial abuse of discretion, end quote, and failure to grant Lumen a fair appeal hearing. Judge Stan Eller heard arguments last Wednesday and will issue a written decision in the case within 30 days. Attorney Katie Blomo represented Lumen, and Deputy County Counsel John Vallejo represented Mono County and the County Appeals Board, which included then Under Sheriff Ralph Obenberger, employee Ken Good, and then Supervisor Tim Hansen. Now, at issue before the court, does evidence from the Personnel Appeals Board hearing support the finding that Mr. Lumen's remark to a public works supervisor was a threat of violence, or was it a, quote, wisecrack, end quote, as Lumen has contended? His termination was based on the finding by 2 of the 3 appeals board members that he threatened his supervisor. Also at issue was the penalty of termination excessive. Attorney Blomo had also raised the issue of potential conflicts regarding Obenberger and Good. Blomo had argued that Obenberger was privy to the Sheriff Department investigation of Lumen's altercation with his supervisor, and that Good had a law enforcement conflict as well. Blomo said these conflicts prevented Lumen from having a fair appeals hearing. We'll be back with more news.